Labour Education Secretary Lord Blunkett says that girls, teenage girls, should be mobilised to get teenage boys to pull their socks up. He thinks the prospect of being shunned by girls would be, he says, an incredibly powerful incentive to stop boys failing in life. And he wants their message to be, if you're a waste of space, we don't want to know you. Do you think that's enough of an incentive for boys to change their behaviour? Or is it just putting too much responsibility on girls? I think we'll go to JJ for obvious reasons.
Finally.
Yes. What do you think?
As the boy.
It's nonsense, isn't it? Why you put the onus on girls to try and make boys better? Vanessa, I know I say this, every time I come on your show, I say the same thing. It starts with the parents.
Exactly,
the parents have got to parent. You got a mum and a dad, you got two dads, you got two mums, you just got one mum and one dad. That person's responsibility is to make sure that your boys are not failing. It's as simple as that. I don't know what Blunkett's talking about.
Well, I mean, he's talking about a situation, obviously, where that has not happened. That's the ideal situation.
So
but if you have a situation where you've got boys who, for example, are following Andrew Tate, so, for example, having all sorts of horrible misogynistic theories and thoughts, they're also, you know, not focusing on school, they're not working hard, maybe they're drinking, maybe they're smoking, maybe they're doing drugs, I don't know. So he's talking about those boys, the ones who effectively have already fallen through the net. So to say at that point, the parents should shape up, it's too late for that.
No, but a 14-year-old boy who's following someone like Andrew Tate, he's not going to listen to a girl or any woman.
But you say that, but maybe he is, though. Maybe the idea that girls won't cop off with him, won't send him the new selfies that he's asking for.
Create more incels.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I can understand what David Blunkett is talking about, absolutely, because I think, you know, girls can make boys pull their socks up. However, what he is missing out here is girls always go for the bad ones.
Well, that's
a fatal flaw in our personality. But a nice, well brought up one.
Yes.
I wish I could argue with that. I would love to be able to argue with that. But unfortunately, the one with the cigarette just stuck on the lip, leaning on a motorbike, that was always the one I liked.
Yeah,
She's quite
naughty.
Let's bring in Eve for the voice of reason here.
Well, first of all, I rather admire David Blunkett. I think it's quite commonsensical.
Absolutely.
And actually, I think it's not a bad idea because this should happen before they get to the cigarette stage. This should happen. I went to an all-girls grammar school, so I left boys behind at 11 until I was at least 15. Anyway, but I think that girls do work hard at school. They do concentrate. There is that girly feeling of, I've got to do well. I think, number one, it would encourage girls, stand up in the class and say, we're working our brains out here. Why aren't you? Why would we want to talk to stupider boys? I think that's as far as you may want to say. And it may get them used to running a big company, doing a big job, because we need more girls to run, more women to run everything. So I think the world might be a better place.
But is it right, though, to put
they should be
responsibility
mobilised
on teenage girls, to say, listen, girls, we need you to kind of rouse up the boys
I don't think you're going to say we're going to mark you how many boys you change. But I think saying to girls, you could run this lot with your eyes closed. This lot of faffing around, not getting on with it. Why don't you talk about the future? AI, AGI, there are new AIs every day. I think it wouldn't do them badly to stand up and say in front of the class, I'm sorry, but we want to go out with boys who are equal to us.
I think that is complete nonsense, and I think it's a nice pipe dream, but it's never going to happen.
Why not?
Why not? Why not? Because teenage boys are not going to be, you don't going to feel shamed because some girls are saying, oh, you're not working hard enough, we're really smart and you're not. They don't care.
No, they're not.
That's not going to change them. And if it could happen, and that worked, what you're going to then have is then the boys are going to supersede the girls, and now we're going to have the boys having to shame the girls and say, you don't work quite hard enough, do you, girls?
Well, let them. If that's ever going to happen, I would be delighted, but I don't think it will.
But JJ, when you say that boys wouldn't respond to girls saying that, isn't most boys, particularly the heterosexual ones, want girls to notice them, fancy them, get off with them, want to be with them? I mean, you've obviously completely forgotten what it's like to be a teenager. All you care about is what girls think of you when you're a teenage boy, don't you?
I don't. If it was me and I was the boy who's underperforming, and the girls in my school were saying, we don't fancy you, we're not going to talk to you until you start getting better grades, I'll go to the school across across the road and meet some other girls instead who aren't going to care.
I'm afraid it's rather harder to get to the school across the road. I'm terribly sorry. Things have changed since you and I went to school.
I'm also a product of single-sex education. I went to the same
But that was to protect the boys.
Well, exactly. And I feel in my life I benefited from having single-sex education. I think I am a girl's girl. I have a great relationship with other women. Yeah. I think when it came to doing anything at the school, we rolled our sleeves up, we did the scenery. You know, if it was a school fair or a fete, you know, there we were getting the trestles out.
Yes.
There wasn't any of that job appropriation. And I am so glad that I went to a single sex.
I went to an all-girls school, but the whole point was...
And look at
the boys' school was next door, and we shared the coaches.
Oh, yeah, well...
And I learned everything that's really mattered in life on the High Barnet coach, and I'm
Would
not
you like
joking.
to tell us what really matters in life?
Usually in the back seat of the High Barnet coach, and those were the absolute best moments of my entire life, and I bar none, absolutely none. And I only agreed to go to that school because the boys were next door, and you could meet the boys, and also you could be in the boys' school play, and you could pretend to be interested in politics and go over to the lectures at lunchtime.
Yeah.
Oh, my!
You're my kind of girl, Vanessa.
My friends who went to the local comprehensive didn't do as well in the stakes of going out as the girls who were in the single sex.
Let's talk to Louisa in Hampshire about this. Louisa, do you think girls should effectively be deployed to bring boys up to the mark? This is David Blunkett's idea, not mine. What do you think?
No, I don't necessarily, and I've had experience of this in as much as my youngest at junior school was sat next to a boy to check his behaviour, and quite frankly, she didn't learn very much most days because she was trying to keep him in. And when I worked out what was going on, I asked the teacher why, and she said Mariella was such a good girl that she was sat next to the boy that necessarily wasn't behaving well in order to keep his behaviour in check. And the same experience happened through senior school, and the boys disrupt the girls, and I just don't think it's fair on the girls.
Did you say did you say to the teacher, look, Mariella is a paragon of all virtues, but I don't want her sitting next to that ruffian and wasting time? Did you say it's up to you, the teacher, to look after this kid and discipline him, not my daughter? Did you make a fuss on your daughter?
Exactly. And I said, the lad in question was a nice enough lad, but he had behavioural issues, and I said, I'm sorry, but Mariella needs to be moved by the end of the week, or I will be in asking more questions. And she was moved.
Did you say anything to Mariella about the sort of boy that you wanted her to go out with when she started going out with boys, and that, you know, you wouldn't be interested in entertaining in your family home a boy that was a complete ne'er-do-well and loser? Did you say anything like that?
Well, I am a mum of 3 girls with older children, so I had a bit of experience by that point. And
right.
You know, they probably know my take on that one. So, I think they've got the measure of it by that age. But to put youngsters in that position to sort of check boys' behaviour, I just don't think it's fair. That's the teachers paid to do that job, not the girls in the class.
Yeah.
And what do you think of when JJ says, you know, well, what boy would respond to that sort of thing anyway? You know, you don't want to be shamed by girls. You wouldn't suddenly...
Well, exactly right. And that's true of what happened in their senior education, is that the boys will play up more if the girls interfere because they have to trump the girls, so to speak. That's my understanding of what goes on in co-ed schools. I went to a same-sex school, so didn't have the same experience. But that's what my girls told me.
Right, that it really wasn't going to work at all. Well, that isn't fair on Mariella,
is it? It's not fair to put a girl in charge of a boy, but for girls to actually stand in front of boys and say, we're not impressed by the way you mess about, by the way you don't do your homework, all the rest of it. But of course, I don't think she should never be put in that position. She's quite right, her mother. The teachers, that's her job.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk to Sheila in Wiltshire. Hello, Sheila.
Oh, hello there.
Hi, what do you think about this? Do you think it should be girls' responsibility to bring boys up to the mark?
No, I definitely don't. And I think it should actually be boys.
How do you mean? I mean, how can you make boys who are not bothering, not working hard, you know, following Andrew Tate and all that sort of thing, how can you get them to bring other boys to the mark, do you think, up to the mark?
Well, I just think... sort of peer pressure could make... I think they all need to get together and call out their friends, literally, at school or wherever they are.
Yeah, Sheila's right. It's not as if every single boy in every school is bad. There's a few bad boys who are in each class, as you'll get anyway. There'll be some girls who are also underachieving. If the good boys, like I was a good boy in school. Of course I was.
Were you a good boy in school?
I was a good boy in school, yeah, because my school, if you wanted to play in the football team, you had to have certain grades. If you wanted to be in the music club, you had to have certain grades.
And your school should be followed. That's a very clever idea, because everybody wants to be in the football team.
And we would, it should be up to us, the good boys, to be saying to the idiot boys, stop it, you're disrupting the whole class now. And that, I think boys would react more to that than to listening to some girl.
All right, well, thanks very much, Sheila.
Don't be
some girl. How rude.
Very well.
Don't forget, later, after Pollard's given JJ a good telling off in the break.